Okay, today we're going to go over something not too complicated, but I found a hard time finding information. It's going to be how to make a missile system that adds kind of a back and forth where they like wobble up and down, and it's kind of this like scatter effect for missiles. Very similar to the original Heavy Gear 2 game. I guess I can show, this is the more complicated version, what I have here. It spawns within a radius, so they're not all coming from the exact same point, and then the wobble is kind of random right here, where it chooses how much to wobble up and down, and then it has a wander vector, and it uses a timeline to tick the wobble. You're basically setting the projectile velocity directly. I'm going to jump over here though to the simpler version without all the mess. So that's, these ones shoot at once and you get kind of this system here. And I'll show the smoke trails as well, since those took me a bit to figure out how to do, and they're also not very complicated. They also look almost like the Dementors from Harry Potter with the black smoke. Anyway, so the actual system is right here. Once it's stripped down, it's pretty dirt simple. So I just do right mouse button, I do a for loop. I have 6 right here, so that I think that shoots 7 projectiles, and you start at 0. The spawn within radius, what you're really doing is you are getting the, let's see here, the up and right vector, and then you also get the min and max for negative, and you're basically adding a random offset of up and right, which based on how randomness works and how vectors work, that will basically paint you a perfect circle around an area. I use a shoulder point. Let me actually rewrite that. Should point, shoulder point, which is just above the camera and up and to the right. I have it parented to the camera, so it points where you look. And then you spawn in this projectile. I have a wander strength, which we can jump to the projectile, which is right here. I have this instance editable and expose on spawn. I think I actually reduced it. This is set for the larger character size of the heavy gears. I had to tone it down a little bit. A wander vector, which gets used right here. And then the projectile velocity, which you have to grab in order to be able to add whatever you're doing to the velocity, right? This tick is a kind of simple thing. It's just a sine wave. I think actually, if we want to experiment, if we make this linear, I think that will affect how this looks. No, I guess since it's smooth, it still makes it look smooth. It might be doing it a little bit harsher, but not too much. Okay, and then we'll flatten this like that. And this is just 1 second back and forth. You can set this to however quickly you want this to wander. So like, for example, if we set this to like 0.2, 0.1, 0.2, oops, there we go. That should make them look a bit more wild. Yeah, see, a lot quicker. Small sine waves. So that's going to be the main determining what your wobble back and forth will look like. Let's set this back though, I'd like 1. Okay, and then we're doing basically the same thing here. So you notice the right vector, max range, negative and plus. So we're kind of using a very similar system here to get the radius, but we're using it here, and it grabs the wander vector, and then it grabs the projectile velocity, and then it sets the projectile velocity to the the actual projectile velocity to whatever the initial projectile velocity was, plus whatever the wander vector is. And it keeps setting that through the timeline. And it lerps it in and out. The other things I'm doing here, I'm setting the projectile, not the projectile, the particle. And the reason it's not just parented to the projectile is often when the projectile impacts something, you want it to get destroyed. And if you don't have it this way, the smoke trails will immediately disappear. So you kind of want to spawn it in, save it, and then set the transform to keep up with the projectile. So that way the smoke trail, which we can jump to, is just here. This spawn burst instantaneous is just here, so you can kind of work on it. The reason this one is black is I actually grabbed the M smoke sub UV black body, which is in the project by default. It's down here under sub editors. And I'm just going to grab this and I'm just going to scroll through this in case you want to look at any of the information. Most of the things are pretty simple. Initializing the particle, setting its sprite size. I scale the Keller a little bit, scale the sprite size a bit, and then I have it increase and then tone down. And then the sprite render, I set the sub, this one is 8x8 under the sub UV. So we do that. And that's the whole system here. It's not terribly complicated, but I wasn't sure how to do this. I didn't see any information on it, so I just want to put the information out there. I think it's a pretty cool effect. Catch you later.